Alrighty then. Um, welcome, welcome, welcome. As most of you know, I have us designated this month to honor our mother, the Reverend Dr. Essie C. Greene, who transitioned from the physical realm on this date 10 years ago. And I've had so many amazing mothers to join me throughout the month, and I still have more scheduled to talk about honoring motherhood and what it's like for them, what it's been like for them. But today I'm honored, and I've really absolutely enjoyed each and every interview I've had, and I'm looking forward to the rest. But today is just a little different. Today I have with me my baby sister, Kelly Greene Adams. And so her talking about our mother and her relationship with our mother is going to be a little different than the other interviews I've had. And so we're looking forward to sharing. I also have one of our adopted to the family sisters, Crystal Carnegie. She's with us. And so a little later on, she's going to share her memories of Pastor Greene and how she impacted her life. First, I'd like to start with my baby sister. And good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I want to start with a lot of people knew Pastor Essie Greene, but not a lot of people knew her on a personal level. They knew her through ministry. And whenever you mention her, the first thing they say is, oh, she really blessed me. She could sing, she could preach, she was a great teacher. But there's a whole different level of understanding and relationship that we have with her because she was our mother. And so I wanted you to come today and to share on this particular day your relationship with her, memories you have that kind of help you get through on your life journey. I was thinking about when I had moved in with mom and dad toward the end of their lives while you were in Virginia doing business and ministry. And so I was thinking about the days that I would get overwhelmed with taking care of both of them because it was a challenge. And anybody who's taking care of your Asian parents and say it's not a challenge, I don't believe you. Because it's a challenge with one, much less with two. And sometimes I would have to call you and I would just be crying, like overwhelmed with the responsibilities. And, like some days I just like, I don't know if I could do this, but I did that. And then thank the Lord, we did have each other. Some people are doing it and they don't have anybody. But I remember calling you and I said, Kelly, they've admitted daddy to the hospital. Because I really didn't think he was going to the hospital that day. And I said, I need you to come. And you left your work and everything there in Virginia and you came to Maryland and you went over and stayed with daddy and then he passed. And then I just kind of like zoned out, I think. Like seriously, there's a lot of things about that time that I don't even remember. And you just jumped in and took care of mom, made sure she was okay, put things in order and this and that and the other. And so I want to thank you for that and appreciate you for always being willing to step in. Sometimes it's aggravating for you. I know it is because we've had conversations about carrying the weight of other people and how sometimes it just breaks you down sometimes, but you're always willing to do that. And I want to publicly thank you for that. So let's start with what impact would you say that mom had on you as a young lady?
Very interestingly, I would have to say, first of all, I was telling some of the young ladies that I work with, one of the things for me is my mom was my best friend. A lot of people have these stories of friends that they had growing up through high school. And it was like, like my oldest son is a friend right now it's actually with a young man that he's been friends with since they were like 5 and 6 years old. And I don't have those memories. My memories are only me and mom. My memories are my earliest memories of girlfriend hanging out things were mom and me. I remember being 8 years old and sitting on her lap and her giving me the lifesaver out of her mouth. And people looking at us like these two. But so when she went into, her stages with Alzheimer's, for me, it was a double loss in the sense that my friend, not just my mother, but the person that I went out to eat with, the person that I went shopping with, the person that, I borrowed money and she borrowed money, and we would laugh sometimes. She'd come over and be like, let me hold it, and when you need it, I'll give it back, and then don't tell your daddy. And I would, we just, even growing up, when I got married and my husband called to my parents' house looking for me, and my dad said to him, listen, she's gone with her mom, honey, just sit back, because they could be anywhere. And so the thing I know I cherished was that she was my friend, and we talked about everything. And so I don't have that, somebody else was like my girlfriend says, it was my mom. So the loss of her like double slapped me in the face, because I didn't have not only my mother, but I didn't have my best friend when she, and long before she died, I lost my best friend. And I think that's the part that was very hurtful for me.
Wow, that's interesting. And I'm glad you shared that. I'm glad you were honest and, to share that with us. Because every time you and I talk about our relationship with our parents, I'm always intrigued by that, because I didn't have that relationship with mom. I mean, I loved her and I know she loved me. There was never any doubt about that. But the whole hanging out and stuff, and sometimes I would call Crystal, I'd be looking for them, and Daddy would be like, oh, they went to Dover to the mall, or they went to, what's that place where you go get ices? Rita's. Like, and I never they don't ask me if I wanted to go anywhere.
We go to the little Chinese buffet. She was just my friend. She was my friend. And ever since I can remember, she was my friend. I mean, I don't remember like going to stay with other little girls. I don't remember having other little girls to come stay over. It was just me and my mom. And this is like all I knew. And I remember when I was in Virginia, I used to call home every morning on my way to work. I would call Daddy to see how she was doing. And every evening I would call. And I remember one morning just crying, and he was like, what's wrong? And I said, I miss my mom. And he said, well, she's right here. I said, no, she's not. The shell of her is there. The physical body is there, but the woman that I hung out with is no longer on this earth. And when that reality hit me, it just, it made me feel alone. I felt alone. I really felt like this is the person that I picked up the phone and talked to about everything, right or wrong, good or bad. And she always supported me. This is the person that was there in such critical times in my life, like in the death of my baby. One of my most fondest memories of my mom as a mother is when my son died and I came home from the hospital, and I did not want to go back into the bedroom where I had all his things. And I sat in her living room floor, and she literally all night long, and she sat there with me. And it's like I couldn't bring myself to do it. And she sat there with me. And that sticks in my mind of the depth of our relationship. And then some of you know, as she progressed in her Alzheimer's, I was like the only person that she seemed to remember. And it used to make my dad upset, because he would take her out for dinner. And in the beginning of this disease, it's called sundowners. And when the sun goes down, the neurons in the back of the brain affect their ability to remember. And so in the middle of dinner, she would be like, where's Kelly? And he literally would have to bring her to my job. And I used to say, stop taking her out at night, because she's not going to remember. But even before, like in the early signs of her dementia, I remember one time before I knew that this was what was wrong with her, and she would like ask me things, and and sometimes she would ask me like the simplest things that I felt she should know. And I would be like, Mom, for God's sake, you know that. And then my dad pulled me aside one time. I never will forget it. I think, as a matter of fact, we had gone to Rhode Island, and I don't know what she was asking me about something to wear or something. And I just kind of was short with her. And my dad said, I'm gonna tell you something. He said, don't do that. He said, your mom, she worships you. She loves you. He said, you know, you're the only person like she can turn to. And at that time, I didn't know about her, that she had the early onsets of Alzheimer's. But I knew we were always close. And I knew even when she first started showing symptoms, you know, she would call me like 7 times a day, and I would call her back and she would be like, I didn't call you. And I was like, Mom, you did call me. What do you want? But, you know, like in hindsight, I just realized that that relationship was important to me, but it was also important to her, because till the very end, almost up until she died, like, that she still would know who I was. And that was one of the reasons why I was never going to put her in a facility or let someone else provide her care, because she was my darling. That's what I called her. And that's what I told people when they would say, oh, this is too much. I was like, she would not have put me in a home. She wouldn't have put me away. And so if it takes the last of my strength, I'm going to make sure that she's taken care of until that day comes. So
there were others that came in to help us, but
absolutely,
they didn't do much, to be quite frank.
Well,
and the reality is, like, when it got down to the get down, she really just wanted you. She wanted daddy, and she wanted you. And she didn't know Trey's name, but for whatever reason, she knew Trey. And he would be like one of the few people that could get her to stop. You know how they can get kind of aggressive toward the end of the disease, and
yeah,
this and that and other. And he would say, Mom, stop that. What are you doing? And she would stop. But Kelly was the only person who she seemed to really know her and even say her name.
I remember a time when Daddy, because it was hard for him to come to terms with the fact that my mom had this disease. And in his mind, he woke up every day thinking she was going to go back to this other person. And so one time he had asked me to take the car so she wouldn't drive, but then he left his keys and she jumped in his truck and went riding. So he called us. And I don't know if you remember this, Jamie, but we went looking for her. And when we found her and we got her to pull over, she was over on Route 13. And she said she was coming to look for me. And I said, well, here I am. And we went back to the house. And she said to him, he said, of course, Daddy is like, Essie, you know better, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I don't know you. This is my daughter. And she's the only person that tells me what to do. And, I tell people, because honestly, I've had several people to call me about my relationship with Mom and about how I got through those last few months with her, because then they started facing it with their own parent. And I think one of the things that helped me with her was the concept I used to say all the time, that her perception is her reality, and we have to come into her world or we'll drive ourselves crazy. It'll get overwhelming trying to make her be in our world, because in those moments, she's just not. So when she would have the delusions, or, initially before I moved into the house, she would call me and say there was a man there and I needed to come and get him out. And I'm like rushing over there, and I'm like, well, where's Daddy? And she's like, I don't know, but this man is here. And I'd go rushing over there and it would be Daddy. And I would say, oh, okay. So then when I started staying there, she'd wake me up and say, that man is in that room. He needs to get ready to go home. And, in my reality, I could say, Mom, that's daddy, go to bed. But understanding that that was her perception, she didn't know this person, I would say, oh yeah. I said, you remember, we told him he could stay here tonight because he don't have nowhere to stay. And she said, well, he can stay, but he got to shut up talking to me. I said, well, I'll tell him don't say nothing to you. But it was those
That's
things
right. That's
that
right.
I had to do, not only for her sanity, but for mine. Because having, and this is what I tried to tell my father, having these conversations with her, you know that ain't right. You know that. No, she doesn't. She doesn't know in those moments. And this is why what I wanted to share today is that I'm creating this thing, and I was hoping to have it further along, but it's actually a book, and it's called For My Darling, and it's those of you that have seen me post a picture of me and my mom. You okay? I post a picture of me and my mom sometime, and that picture of us where I'm sitting in a black t-shirt and she's sitting there, we're actually humming a song together. And that was like one of the last times that she and I sat on the couch, and I would just kind of talk to her and call her my darling. So I felt like, as you said, we did have people that came in to help take care of her, but I felt very uncomfortable a lot of times because I feel like people are not educated on how to deal specifically with that population of people. They are allowed to, like, home health care is a very prominent business right now, but they don't do a lot of teaching to these people on how in specialized care. So one of my goals in the Rock Foundation is to have a training opportunity and hopefully a home healthcare business that specializes in that population. And so what I'm creating is this book. And it's called For My Darling, and it's Welcome to My World. And it talks to the caregiver. It's actually a book of I'm sorry, I'm losing my thoughts, like coloring pages and things that the actual patient can work on, but it's also information on that to help you understand. So you know the stages that they're going through. So you understand in that stage, what should be your expectation? Because my mind often goes back to when my mom's, the early stages of hers, and how my father would be like asking her to cook him something to eat. And one of the early signs of early onsets is the loss of smell and the loss of sense of time and things like that. So she would put something on the stove and then it would burn up. And I would come in the house and I would be like, Mom, she was like, I forgot all about it. And I kept saying to my father, stop asking her to cook, because she, bless his heart, he just couldn't get that she was not that person. And I kept saying to him, Daddy, even if being a man of faith, I understand what you're saying about believing God for her healing, but also even if you need to accept her for who she is today. Today, she is this person, and this is her limits, and these are the boundaries in which she lives, and you have to embrace her there. And if God heals her, great, but don't put this expectation. And that's the thing why, like a lot of times, I think one of the reasons that I'm creating this book For My Darling is so that people will understand what is going on with them, and how, like, I remember everybody was feeling some kind of way because I wasn't taking her out in public, but she became very irritated when she would have to leave the house, which was a part of this process. They become anything that takes them outside of their routine or their ritual of being able to just get up. And so I said to people, you're welcome to come to the house, but it was so much, and Jamie can witness that sometimes we would take her And she would get, if we got her in the car, she literally would hold onto the door and didn't want to get out. And that was hard for me and hard for us to deal with. So I was like, no, she can't. So I kept telling my dad, stop trying to drag her to church. Stop trying to take her places, because if people want to see her, she's available. But we need to give her the dignity of, this is where she's comfortable and this is where she feels safe. And this is another reason why I was reluctant to put her in any kind of like facility. When she has moments that she is lucid, I want it to be in her own environment. I want her to look around and know that she's home. And so I feel like a lot of times it is, as you said, it is an overwhelming task to care for someone with Alzheimer's. But I feel like that if we were more equipped with information. So sometimes it's 2 to 4 years when a person gets these symptoms before they get diagnosed. I know with mom, we didn't get diagnosed for her early on, because a lot of people would say, oh, she's just under a lot of pressure. Like when she would forget her keys, or she couldn't find her pocketbook, and people would say, oh, she just got a lot on her. But I remember one day saying, well, what is it she's got on her? Because she don't have to do nothing. So it's like, and I realized that we were making excuses rather than addressing her issue. So when it got to the point where we were having these conversations 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is the book that I'm doing for my darling, it talks about understanding these delusions and these things where somebody's trying to kill me, y'all trying to call me crazy, y'all people stealing my stuff because I know I put it here, and all of these things were a natural process for this disease. But no one seemed to know that, because we, of course, were not educated around this disease. So when a friend of mine called me the other day, it just really confirmed that I feel like this book is needed, because once a person has had that diagnosis, we need to know as the caregivers what to expect, because I had not a clue. And even with the book that they had given us, I don't feel like it walked me through, like, what am I going to do with her all day long? Like, what are some of the things that I can do? And there are some things that I created to put in this book that weren't necessarily in the book, in any kind of research. But because if they were a person, mom, for example, was always busy and always going. So if she can't go out of the house, then I need to keep her busy in the house. So I would do simple things like take a basket of clothes and just dump them out and ask her to fold them up. And after she folds them up, I take them in the room and unfold them and bring them back, ask her to fold them again, because it just kept her busy and it kept her feeling productive in that regard. So I definitely... it's called For My Darling, and it's a family guide through Alzheimer's.
That's
and
awesome.
It's something called like Welcome to My World, and it talks about how we embrace their reality and don't try to. You can't pull them out of it. You will, you'll frustrate yourself trying to make them understand the world that we're in, because our world is no longer their world. And I think that is what saved me, was the Lord just giving me the wisdom to be like, don't fight it. Like, just, I had to embrace this. And I think this is what the struggle was from my father, is he or our father, is that he really struggled to embrace this sickness.
I know he said several times that I have prayed and asked God, when I wake up in the morning, I want my Essie back. And I remember trying to explain to him, like, we know God is a miracle worker. We've seen it. Our children may not have seen the miracle that we've seen, but we've seen God work miracles. But because every morning when he woke up, she was getting worse, you could see it was affecting him, and he was literally worn out spiritually, physically, every other kind of way. I'm gonna say something that that's funny, like kind of help me get myself together. Okay. But remember that time when mom always would stand in front stand in front of the TV, Crystal. Now you got the whole house, the whole living room, the whole everything. And Daddy's watching TV, and it never fails. She would go stand right in front of the TV. So Daddy was like, "My God, you know him. My God, Essie, will you move?" And what did she say, Kelly?
She said, "You ain't tell Bernice that." Because Bernice was her older sister who had been dead about 15, 20 years when she said that. But again, this is where I was trying to get my dad to see what she was doing in those moments. They had a lot of whatnots on top of their TV, and she was just rearranging them. She just needed to stay busy. And I think, my dad being older and then not being open to the acceptance of the fact that this was a progressive disease. And he got upset with me because, he was like, "I'm believing God to heal her." But one of the things, that I learned when I pastored my oldest sister, and she was in that hospital, and I asked the Lord to heal her, he said to me very specifically, death is the ultimate healing. And from that, I came to understand that his design of healing is not always ours. We want people to be who we wanted them to, back to what they were, but that may not be the will or the plan of God. And we have to embrace the will of God. So my thing is like, not that he changed anything, but I was so glad that her last days were not, there are 7 stages to Alzheimer's, and the last stage, my dad feared it because it was the stage where she would forget to swallow and thus, not be able to eat and die. And there were times that he would call and be like, "Your mom's not eating," and I would go over there and I said, "It's what you're feeding her. She doesn't want that." I mean, because I came right over here and gave her something that she wanted. As long as she's eating, I was okay with her eating. So I don't care what she's eating, but let her eat. But I'm going to say, fortunately, because she was up and lucid to some points during every day up until the day before she passed away. And the interesting part of that for me, and the part that really brought me to a place of peace, was the day that she recognized that he was no longer there. It wasn't many days after that my Aunt Rachel and my Uncle Calvin had come down to have dinner with us. And she was in the bed, and I went in there and I said, "My darling," I said, "you got company. Do you want to get up and, go see your family?" And she shook her head like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, well, we'll just let you stay." And I went out there and I said, "Well, she really doesn't feel like getting up right now." And I went back in there, and she literally was doing this with her hands. And I said to her, I said, "What are you doing, my darling?" And she looked at me. And if you learn about the stages, the latter stages is mainly utterances. It's not real like sentence structures or phrases. But she looked at me and said, "I'm going to be with my husband." And that next morning, I went to church, and my oldest son came to
He called us on the
take
phone.
care of her. And on the way back from church, she had a heart attack. And that was on the 13th. They rushed her to the hospital. And on the 14th, they removed she was on life support. They removed the life support and said that in a matter of minutes, she would pass away. And 14 hours later, she passed away. And it's just interesting because for me, it was, some people say that she didn't die until I was ready to accept that. But I don't know how true that is. I just know that I was going to stay until she died. And if that meant, she was going to be living for a few more days, I'd have just been sitting there. But that was just me. But I'm grateful because I learned so much about it. The other thing I did want to share as far as a happy memory that makes you laugh is, and Jamie and I have laughed about this many times, is 2 things my mother used to do is when she did go out with us, and it's like 4 or 5 of us all in the car together, and we get up and we start walking towards the store, and I look up and she'd be walking the other direction. And I would say, Mom, where are you going? And she said, I didn't know where y'all were going. And I used to say, just follow the crowd, Mom. Just follow the crowd. It's like everybody else is going. And and then she would get upset because, Crystal, she loved the Lord. She loved the Lord and she loved church.
Yeah.
And she wanted to go to church all the time. And sometimes it would be no church going on. And I would say, Mom, there's no church. And she would be like, Jesus don't like y'all keeping people from church. And I would literally have to drive her over there
she could see.
to show her that nobody was in the parking lot. This was in the early stages. And she would do things like, she would act like that. And then my other funniest memory is when we went to Jamie's house one day, and she said she had to go to the bathroom. And I said, go ahead. So a few minutes later, I noticed she hadn't come out of the bathroom, and I peeped in the bathroom because the door wasn't all the way closed and nobody was sitting on the toilet. So I got up and I went in there. I didn't see her. I said, Mom. And she peeked from behind the curtain of the shower. And she peeked like she was undressed. I mean, she was like, she peeked a little. She said, yes. And I said, what are you doing? She said, trying to figure out how to get out of here. Well, that was just all of me. And I just fell out laughing. And when I get that visual, and I think I am a therapist and I work with people with grief and loss. And I say to them, a lot of times when you're starting to feel unhappy, when you're starting to miss that person, because that's a natural thing. And I never tell people don't feel it, but I say, try to think about a memory that makes you smile about that person. Try to think about something that meant something to them and memorialize them in a way that has meaning. This is why I'm building the foundation, and this is why I'm trying to get these things done, because these are things that matter to her. My mom, and it's so interesting, and I didn't even think about it. When I went into therapy, I didn't even think about going into substance use. And then when I was at this place called GPHA, and they asked me would I lead a substance use class, and I was like, I don't know nothing about that. He said, I think you could do a good job. And I began to do it. And I realized that my mom, that's what she got her degree in, was substance use counseling at Warwick. And then I thought about, the kind of things we did for like the community. Like she definitely had a heart for the community. We did the fathers coming out of jail. We did the father in my daddy's place program. She did the Christian school. She did, all kind of like things on a counseling level. And she did all of that without a degree, and she did a great job. And so I think my takeaway, people always say that I look like her, but I honestly say, if I could just be like her in some other ways, because my mother was I'm more like my father in a lot of ways. Shut up, Jamie. And so and I can own that. That's who I am. And I don't make excuses for who I am. I do try to tweak it a little bit, because I know how sometimes it can be, one of my spiritual mothers said, you can be like sandpaper to the body of Christ. It don't feel good when you're rubbing them, but it'll be smooth at the end. And I felt like that was my dad. And I feel like sometimes that's me. But my mom had a way that was very tender with people. And I feel like as I'm getting older, maybe I'm getting a little more tender. I feel like a little bit more of her spirit is with me in this phase of my life right here.
And I mentioned that to you frequently. Like I'll point it out to you. Like, I remember when you would not have said that. I remember when you wouldn't respond that way. You are becoming more sensitive, and I noticed that. I'm proud of it.
I think I'm getting saved for real.
Yeah, it's possible. The closer, the older you get, and the closer you get to dying, you need to get yourself together.
Because Jesus is coming real soon. I can't be playing no games. But no, I think, and I loved that about her, but I also didn't like it about her, as you know, because I feel like in her I think one of the most hurtful things for me, and I'm not, one of those people. Jamie, she's very transparent on Facebook about her feelings, but one of the things that was most hurtful for
Shut up,
me,
Crystal.
um, one of the most hurtful things for me was when I was living in Virginia, and Jamie had her own physical issues that she was going with, and my father had told me to go to Virginia, like with his blessing. He's like, listen, you have your life to live. And this is when mom first got diagnosed. He was like, we're here, supposedly, they were going to have people that were going to be there to help take care of her. All of this was supposed to be taken care of. So he was like, no, go, and take this opportunity. And I did. And then it was said to him when he was trying to get people on a schedule to come out and help, that it was said to him, well, where are her daughters? And at the time, Jamie was in Virginia with me. And because I'm saved and love the Lord, I said, I'll just come back and take care of my mom. So I just came back every weekend. I worked during the week and I would come back every weekend. But one of the things that was hurtful to me was I thought about when they asked about where God was when their child died, and people always say he's the same place that he was when his son died. I would always want to say, if those people had asked me, I would say I'm the same place I was when you were running her all over town to do stuff for you, and I wanted her as my mom. Now, I couldn't get her and as my mom during those times because you were occupying her time. So now that she needs help, now you want to know where I am. Well, I'm right here because I'm going to be here because she's my mom. But I felt offended that you would even ask that when you had taken her golden years and let her serve you. And I had to allow God to, because I practice honestly wholeheartedly walking in forgiveness. And I every day I ask the Lord, I don't want to hold nothing against nobody. I want nothing between my soul and my Savior. I let people go. But I was really taken back, and my father was offended to tears that people would even say those kinds of things when they gave their life for ministry. And so
I was going to say, and that's was it's interesting because even though I've always been considered the softer one, always crying easy, sensitive, stuff like that. But during this season, when people started attacking our parents, when people started making my father cry, who never cries, but he was at that point where he was crying all the time. Kelly was saying, well, we're going to let God deal with it. I was calling people on the phone because I said, God can take care of some things and I can take care of some things. And I let him go ahead and take care of what he got to take care of, but I can take care of this. So I did call a couple of people and remind them that we are totally aware she's our mother, but she was our mother when she didn't have time for us because she was so busy doing stuff for y'all. And literally the ministry that they gave their life for, not just figuratively, but literally their last breaths and conscious thoughts were of that ministry. That ministry sucked the life out of their lives to the very end. And I don't care who hears it, who heard what I said. I don't care because that's what happened. Because the week before Daddy died, he's literally sat in that living room and cried about some of the things that the people at the church were saying that they would no longer do to help him, that they would no longer do to help Mom. So it took a lot of healing for me to even be able to talk about it without just falling apart. And without, I really had to be healed and from anger, bitterness, and even hatred. I can be honest about that. But our parents poured into us and instilled certain things in us, and even with our children, that we can only go so far left before we okay, let me get myself together because Mom and Dad would not want that. And I want to ask, I'm going to give Crystal a chance to say something. Then I have a couple more things I want to ask Pastor Kelly, but I'm glad to have you on here, Crystal, because as I said at the beginning, there are a lot of people that knew Essie Greene, and she had a mothering spirit. She mothered a lot of people. And though she didn't give birth to you, you were one of those people that she and Daddy considered one of their daughters. So Tell us how she impacted your life.
Well, first of all, I do want to say, because I don't think I've ever said this before, but I do want to thank Jamie and Kelly for the times that they allowed me to be a part of their parents' lives. Because a lot of times, and I've seen it firsthand myself, when we have the adopted children that come into the family, sometimes um, the parents split their time between the adopted children and the biological children. So I do want to say thank you for allowing me the time that I spent with your parents, because they were lovable people. And actually, my friendship really started with Sid. It began with Sid because Sid used to call me her scrambling partner. So with Sid was like her mom. You could be anywhere on any given day. I'll pick you up at 9 and we'll get home till about 10 o'clock that night. So, but that's how Pastor Greene was. She would call and say, hey, I'm going so and so and so and so. I'll be at your house at, not can you go?
Right.
But I'll be there. I said, okay, fine. So the relationship that she and I had, it started off as a friendship, and then it blossomed into that mothership, because during the time that I was with her, it wasn't just that she needed me. It wasn't that she needed me. I needed her. Because there were some things that I was dealing with, even in my own personal life. And I was able to talk to her about it because, I'm the type of person, I hold stuff and then let it just go boom. But I was able to talk to her, and I said, well, Pastor Greene did so and so and so. She said, well, let's do it like this. So I was grateful that I had that time with her. And I was grateful for every minute that I spent with her, because it was so much different, because I had a mother, I had a grandmother, I had a godmother. But it was just something about Pastor Essie Greene. She had that, it was like a special connection. And we connected, and it wasn't just that I connected with her, but I connected with the whole entire family. Because after a while, the chief became my father. I won't go into that story, but we all know that story. And and it was funny because a lot of times when he would preach, he'd like to call people's names across the pulpit.
Yes.
But she being with Pastor Greene, it allowed me to go to places that I probably normally wouldn't go to. Because we were in Boston, we were in Rhode Island, New York. We lived in Seaford. So we would go Seaford almost every day. So I got to know a lot of the family. I had heard about the Palmer family. I had heard about everybody. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is who this is. This is who that is. So, being with her. And then when she transitioned, I felt like I lost the mother, pretty much. I felt like I lost a mother, because even that morning when I found out that she had passed away, and I just couldn't get myself together. I just couldn't. I went to work. I was sitting there crying and carrying on, and I couldn't really explain to them how the relationship was. But I just thank God for the life that I was able to be a part of. And then when we had those third Sunday meetings,
yes,
either at Mount Enoch or at Revival Center, it's just like, at that time, it just felt like we were just family. It was just family. So I thank God for her life. I thank God that, okay, so we're going to do this. I thank God that she allowed me to be a part of her life.
yes.
Because a lot of times it takes a special person to allow someone into your life. And so I appreciate everything that she did. I appreciate every word that she had given me, because everything wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to accept. But then there was the times of correction. And Lord knows some of them corrections was awful. But I do appreciate it because it has made me a better person today. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful for the opportunity of being part of the Greene legacy.
And I'm going to say, Crystal, my mind went back to when we had the Christian school and how, you know, you just stepped in and like you helped, you were just like one of the family. And that's, you know, a lot of times you're right. One of the things that I really, I know about being a pastor's child is like, there are people that your parents adopt, and then there are people that you accept. It's like, because there are people that I would say, you know, you can be mom's daughter, but you're not my sister. You know, I don't care. Y'all can have that relationship, but you can't force that on me. That's your relationship with her. But you definitely were a person that I would count as a sister, and that I feel like we're genuine, because it hurts you as a person to see people take advantage of. My mother was a kind person, and she, sometimes we would have these conversations when I would be like, you know, people's called to the church and want to help pay their rent and want you to help them get a place to stay and help them get furniture. And mom was doing all of that. And so then I started like answering the phone, and I was like, what church do you go to? Did you ask your pastor? But I used to say to mom, sometimes the Lord bless you, people walk up and give you money, things like that, and then you give it away. And she said, well, the Lord knows my heart. And I used to think, yeah, the Lord know your heart. But, you know, but as I got older, I realized a lot of things that she shared with me in terms of her lifestyle and serving people and helping people. There is a reward that comes with it that money can't buy. And I see it in my own life. I tell my children, like, as I got older and started taking in people, and I think of all the people that my mom and dad had come live with them. And I think of all the girls that have come to live with me and now call me mom. And I say to my children, my biological children, because I'm mindful of what happened with us, I would say to them, listen, you know, I'm going to help them, but you're mine and you're my responsibility. The Lord gave you to me. I birthed you into this world and you're my responsibility. And not, you know, I always would need to take care of that. But I tell them that sometimes when we're doing good for others, it's not even for us. It may be, there may come a day when you need a place to stay. And because I open my door to somebody else's child, somebody would open their door to mine. But I just really appreciate more than anything, her love, her genuine love of people. And I laughed a lot of times because when I talk to people about Alzheimer's, one of the things that they say is, you know, in the latter years, their parents started cussing and started like fighting. And one lady said the lady pulled a knife on her and all of that. And I never had any of those experiences with my mom. And I always said that that's who they were, because I feel like who you are in that time comes out because there is no filter on your brain. So whoever you, like, if you're a mean-spirited person, that's going to come out, you know, when you have Alzheimer's, because there's no, that logical part of you that says, don't say that ain't nice. Jamie's grandmother, I remember, you know, back then they didn't identify Alzheimer's, but I do believe that that's what she had. And looking at the symptoms, and I remember somebody came to see her one day, and when they bent down to kiss her, she spit in their face. Ooh. And I always said Jamie's grandmother was mean, and people always said she wasn't. But my Aunt Catherine said one day, I said she was mean, and my dad said no, she wasn't. And my Aunt Catherine said, Kelly, you're right. My mom was mean. So I think when she got in the dementia stages, it really manifested. But even up until I think a day or two before my mom passed away, I have a memory of sitting at her dining room table, and she walked past me and she rubbed my head and she said, there's my baby right there. And that's why I tell people those you
Well, let
can't.
me just tell you, I have a memory when she slapped me in my eye and I couldn't see for about an hour. And we were in the bathroom, Crystal, and I was trying to wash her up because she got really agitated when you tried to wash her up toward the end. And she slapped me, and this whole eye was hurting. And Daddy was in the other room hollering, Jamesina, what's that noise? So I come out the hallway, I'm holding my eye, and I'm like, your wife slapped me. That's what that noise is. So then he's like, Essie, and she's like, huh? Because she don't even remember. She's like, huh? She don't even know what's going on. So it wasn't even 10 minutes later, here she comes. Hey, baby, you so pretty. And then she always want to give you a word and a prophecy. And I'm thinking, get away from me, my eye hurt. But like she didn't remember. And like Kelly said, even in those moments when she would be mischievous or difficult, 2 seconds later, she's singing a hymn, she's singing a worship song, quoting the scripture, giving you a prophecy because that's what was in her.
That was a bit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think, Krista, you're so right. What people saw in her, for the word would be genuine. She was genuine in her love for people. She was genuine in the way she cared for people. And I'm going to say, even though we're not really talking about my dad today, he was too, but he just was a different way with people. And my father was guarded, and you had to be a certain person to get into that space. And that's why a lot of times people didn't know him. But when people got to know him, they know that he was a loving person too. To me, he was the epitome of a father and a man. He was the epitome of a husband and a provider and a protector. He was just a great man to me, and his wisdom and his knowledge and all of that. And I believe they were such a beautiful couple. And I so am grateful. My son's father told me one time, he said, your normal is not most people's normal. There are not many people who could say, both of my parents were together all of my life. And during that time they were together, I never heard them argue. I never heard them fuss or fight. Now, when we got older, they, might have said a few things, but I'm talking about like some of the kids I deal with, some of the experiences that they had with their parents, like, cussing and fussing and abuse and things of that nature. I never had that experience. And I just knew my father did whatever he had to make sure we had a roof over our head and we were protected. And my mother was just a lover of people. One of the other things that I did learn from her is I didn't learn color. I remember her best friend was a white lady named Miss Irene, and she never referred to her as my white friend, Miss Irene. She just referred to her as Miss Irene. And I remember when she used to take care of Devin and Lauren Holland, and it was just relationships that she had with people. It wasn't based on their color or their socioeconomic status, none of that. She just embraced people. And I would say for me, looking like her is great, but to be like her in that regard would be such an honor. So I'm working on it to be a little more accepting, but that's something I definitely appreciate about her. I definitely appreciate about the life that she lived. I think she lived a life that I'm not ashamed of. She's lived a life that I'm not ashamed to say that Essie Greene is my mama.
And it's true. And I was thinking, and we're going to be winding this up, but I was thinking when you were talking about how she gave, and sometimes I would really get an attitude about it. And I know Daddy got an attitude about it. And that's why Mom hid a lot of things from him that she did for people, because she co-signed for people to get apartments. I remember this lady came to the church. She came for like maybe 3 Sundays. And then she was like, she needed a place to live. And Mom and Daddy were known in the community. So Mom went and talked to the landlord and co-signed for this chick to get an apartment. And I don't think she ever did come back to church. So then when she lost the apartment or quit paying, then of course they were coming to Mom. So then she's giving the man money behind Daddy's back but she don't want daddy to know. So as a family, we would always often say to her, Mom, why do you keep doing that? Like, we understand that God wants you to bless people, but he also wants you to use common sense. And
Right.
some of these people, you can tell from the door that they're going to use you, but you do it anyway. And she said, one reason why I do it is because I know that you're dead and I won't be here always. And I believe if I help somebody else's children, then somebody will help mine when I'm not here to help them. And that was a lesson. That was something that I took from her. And Kelly always, like even when I have ideas about ways to help people and I get upset or like I want to cry because I know people have needs and I don't have the money to help, even with my organization and stuff. And I get that from my mom. But one of the other things that she taught me about giving, she said one time that she was asking the Lord for some money to do something. And she was just praying and praying and praying and asking the Lord to get this money. And the Lord blessed her with the money. And then she gave it to somebody else. And then she was back praying and asking the Lord for the money again to take care of this need. And the Holy Spirit said to her, I already gave it to you. And you gave it away. And she said, and that taught her that it's good to give. It's important to give, but it's important to be wise as well. Because you can't give away everything you have. And then when it's time for you to meet your needs, then you don't have it. And I think that was one of the things toward the end of her life, as Kelly was talking, I think that was one of the things toward the end of her life that as a family that disturbed us more than a lot of things was that this is a woman who literally gave her life for people. Anybody that knew her in ministry or outside of ministry, we always talk about how Essie Greene was giving. And then in the latter years of her life, you had to literally beg people to help her or to come sit with her. We would be like, we're not asking you to take care of her, just come spend some time with her, sit with her and talk to her. She might not even know who you are, but you can still talk to her. But people still had a problem doing that. So it just kind of taught us the importance of balance in life. That's one of the things that I learned, that Mom didn't really have the balance she needed. So I learned that it was important to have that balance. And I'm honored to be able to say, as my sister said, that Essie Greene was my mother. And I didn't, honest to God, I didn't realize until I was grown as well, that I was talking about my parents and about my daddy and this, that, and other. And a young lady said to me, she said, you don't understand how blessed you are that you grew up with both of your parents. She's like, I didn't have my dad in my life at all. And within the last year, I think it's been, her dad came back into her life, maybe 2 years, and he ended up being terminally ill. And she got to take care of him. And it's hard to care for a person that walked out on you when you were a child. But she did it. And then she had to take care, he passed and she had to take care of his service and all of that. And I thought about you when she said to me not too long after my daddy died, I was always talking about my daddy and on Facebook. And she said to me one day, you don't know how blessed you are. And then I thought, like Kelly just said, I thought back to childhood when we lived on West Main Street. And I thought about all the kids that I knew that didn't have both their parents. And we just took it for granted because they were there. Like, we didn't know anything about living without them because they were there. Whether we want them or not, they were there. So it took us till we got older to realize, well, that was like an unusual situation to have both of your parents. So we've been blessed. We've been blessed. And I don't regret.
Also being people don't understand, if you've never been a caregiver, you don't know what that entails.
Yeah.
I mean, because a lot of times, I mean, and I can say even for my own self, because we ended up mom had to be in the nursing home because she ended up not being able to walk again. And we really didn't have that support system where, we could stay at home and we could take care of her, or we had people to come in. that would be able to take care of her while, well, I'm up here and my sister is at home, but we both were working. So
Yeah.
my sister would get off work every day and go sit with her at the nursing home and stay there till 8, 9 o'clock at night. So she was more of her support system at that time than I was. But even if you are taking care of a parent, if you're taking care of a parent or parents, it's hard. It takes a lot of prayer. It takes a lot of tears. It takes a lot of sweat. And then when you hear other people say things about you taking care of your parents, it bothers me.
Yeah.
It bothers me.
Yeah.
But even in that, I had to learn that sometimes people don't really know what they're saying. They really don't. But if they're ever in that predicament, then it would be nice of them to come back and say, oh, I'm sorry for what I said to you.
And it's interesting, Crystal, you would say that because at the death of my father, there was a lot, I'm sure you've heard a lot of confusion and stuff. And somebody did come back to me and say that they needed to apologize because while they were grieving or mourning their leader, they were like, you all were mourning your father. I mean, granted, he was our leader. He was a spiritual father, but this man was your father. I mean, he birthed you. I mean, he brought you into this world, and it's a whole different kind of mourning. The saddest part about caring for your parents in this generation, and they call us the sandwich generation, is like, for me, I had Christian who was like still in elementary school while I'm taking care of mom because dad had passed away. So thank God I was blessed that Christian had a good father who, did his part and sometimes did mine. But he was one of the people, though, bless his heart, who told me, he said, this is too much for you. You need to, because mom, you would go and she'd sit in the middle of the floor and then you couldn't pick her up. It was like dead weight. And he would come and I would like, can you help me get her up? And he'd help me get her up. And then before him and Christian could walk out the door, she done sat back in the floor again. And I had to call him back. He's like, Kelly, this is too much. I said, just help me get her up. I ain't asked you to do nothing but help me get her up. But the thing is, it is a lot. And my cousin, Doreen, was helpful because at the time she was in healthcare and she told me, she said, get a baby monitor because I couldn't sleep at night because mom was a wanderer. And I didn't want her to walk out the door. So she said, get a baby monitor. So I would get a baby monitor. And that way I could hear when she started moving around in there, and it would make me get up and go in there. But like you said, and statistically, it's been shown that caregivers usually die even before the people they're caring for because of the stress. Jamie mentioned earlier, the doctor said, mom's doctor said, when my dad brought my mom in for her appointment, he said, I'm more worried about your father than your mother because this disease has taken such a toll on him because you worry about the person that's sick. They're not worrying. The sick person ain't worrying, but the caregiver is, and it's a lot. And like you said, but here was my thing, Crystal, and here was the thing that brought me peace when we came to the end of everything and it was time to let them go on. And I said to people, when they went in the grave, I feel fine. I mean, I miss them, I'm whatever, but I don't have no regrets because I feel like I did my best by them while they were here. And, even in those latter days of my father's life, I didn't know at the time it was going to be his latter days, but we were talking about a lot of things that were on his heart that he wanted to see happen. And I was like, Daddy, when you get back, we'll work on that. But the reality is, I tell people this about him all the time because it was different for me. Like my mom and I were just, like I said, we were best friends, but my dad, people will always come to his anniversaries and things, and they would say, I've known Apostle for this long, and I've known Apostle for this long. And I would say, I didn't really get to know the man until like 10 years before he died. I think my dad was like in his 70s when I got to know the man. I knew the apostle, I knew all that, but the man, I mean, he began to talk to me as a colleague in the gospel, and he would share about his life story. He would share about things, intimate things. When he got sick one time, he had a really, really, really bad infection, and he had to have a catheter, and he wasn't going to go to church, and because he didn't want it. I was the only person that he would even let like clean his catheter and irrigate it, and he didn't want, like, even mom and them, he didn't want them to do it. And during that time, he was so vulnerable to me that it created this relationship with us. And I honored that. And I honored him. And I watched him, and his love for my mom just made me have a whole nother different respect for him. When I saw how he, in those latter years, would have given his life to see her be better. And those kinds of things really stuck with me. And I'm honored, again, like I said, to have been their child, to have been a part of their life, and to have been seeded into their family. And, like I said, when I think of her, I have such wonderful, wonderful memories. And my only regret is that I wish I'd had one or two other like friends, because when, then I had nobody but Jamie, but.
And she never has taken me to Rita's.
Oh, we used to go to Rita's all the time.
Or the Dover Mall.
Yeah, all of that.
Or the China buffet.
Or the China buffet.
And we went there almost every day.
Right.
It was nothing personal against you. It's just,
whatever.
I was the baby, and I guess I was the last of the Mohicans, and so...
I ain't touching that.
Yeah, don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Mm-mm.
But you know what? I'm going to tell you as we close what's interesting, though, because I remember one time, and I use this analogy sometimes in therapy. I don't tell them that it's my family, but I mention it. I remember one time my oldest sister and my father had a disagreement. Jamie, you probably remember this. I don't know if you know how important it was to me, but talking about family dynamics and relationships. My sister and my father had a big thing, and it was like a big deal. And we had a coming to Jesus meeting, and it was me and mom and daddy and Jamie. And then we always used to take Mother Hall because she was kind of like that mediator that you'll be calm and you'll speak right if Mother Hall's in the room. So they were in there and they're having this discussion. And I was at this place in my life where everything that I was new pastoring, I believe, because at that point, everything I said, I would say, well, the Bible says such and such.
So annoying.
The Bible says such and such and such and such. And to the point where my dad even said, Kelly, my Lord, the Bible says about everything. And I started laughing. But the thing that I think was very important to me was, now I'm this mature adult, and now I'm this pastor, and now I'm doing this. And Sylvia said something, and daddy said, that's not how it was. And mom said, well, let her tell it. And he said, I knew you would take up for her because that's your girl. And he said, and mom said, yeah, that's my girl. And Jamie's your girl. And I said to somebody, I said, well, she's her girl and she's his girl. Well, who the heck girl am I? I ain't nobody's girl. Because it ain't but two parents. So if she got a girl and he got a girl, then who am I? Whose girl am I?
Now that's funny because I do remember that.
But I remember looking at myself and saying, okay. So
I do remember that.
And my Mother Hall's girl, I got to be somebody's girl. But I think it was so defining for me of the role that I played in our family in the latter years, because my parents both kind of depended on me to do things. And I was thinking, I'm the baby, but I'm a lot like my father. More, which is why, the people at the church said they didn't want me because they said I was too much like him. But anyway.
Lord Jesus.
That's
what
they
they said. They said, they said you preach good. They told me I preach good and everything, but that I was too much like my father. So, okay, well, praise the Lord. Because that's just who I am. I make no apologies for that. But I think having a little bit of both of them to me is a blessing. Because they were two great people in their own ways. My father was so full of wisdom that great men of God, would sit at his feet to hear him talk. And my mother was so full of love that, like you said, Crystal, it was very genuine and you felt very safe with her. And so, to have a little bit of both of those people, I'm honored. I'm honored and I'm honored that even sometimes when I'm talking, people say, oh my God, you sound like your mom. You look like your mom. Sometimes I look at my hands and my feet and I see my mom, but I'm just honored. And, like Jamie said, today is probably like the first time that I've actually had this day come around and didn't, think of the experiences in a negative way. And I'm able to say, while we can't go to the Chinese buffet and all that, which I know she wouldn't want to come back just to take me to no Chinese buffet. I'm honored that she's here. Yeah. And I ain't mad with her, but, I'm just honored, and I'm honored even for the people that their lives have touched too. Because like you said, they've touched so many lives and been such a blessing to so many people. And I'm just honored to be a part of that.
Amen. Well, ladies, I appreciate this. I had my moments and I probably will have some more before the day's over, because, you think about.
I heard that.
I know, right? I wasn't muted.
You say
nothing.
Don't make me throat punch you in front of all these people.
I said you're such a crybaby.
I've actually done very well today. Thank you very much. But I just think about even in the latter years, the changes in both of them and how they physically were just going down, but their heart for people stayed the same. And this is one of the things that made me so angry. And my sister had to really try to talk me through it, because I saw them right up to the week that Daddy died, like giving out thousands of dollars to people to help with their stuff. And then like a week after he's gone, these same people, are dishonoring his memory. But I'm just grateful to be able to say that they were my parents. And this is the DVD that I was saying that I wanted to upload and play for you guys. But
we'll get it done.
Apparently, I'm so out of touch. I was informed that the newer what do you call them? Laptops don't even have the DVD player on anymore. So I'll tell you how old I am. But anyway, sometime before the month is out,
we'll get it to you.
Share that. Because I've asked one of my family members if they were ready to watch the DVD. They said no.
I'm ready.
I'm like, it's 10 years. I know that we still miss on everything. For corn's sake, get yourself together.
Well, again, the other part of that is that that grieving is a process that people have to go through, and ignoring it won't make it go away. And that's what I was telling one of the young ladies that called me the other day about, some grief she's going through. And I said, it's okay to have those moments. No, and don't let people tell you you can't. That's important. Have your moments, but don't let the moment be the whole day. When you find that all you're thinking of is, oh, I miss them, try to think of something else about them that makes you happy or that makes you content. And so, I definitely will do what I can to make sure. I got somebody down there, I'm gonna call, see if they can either burn the DVDs for you or, put it on a, download it on something or whatever and see what they can do to make it better. But I think that's important. They live on in our hearts, but they touch so many lives. I just, they always say that gone but not forgotten thing. But I'm just saying that you'll always remember, and sometimes you'll be sad. That's a part of the grief cycle. It's okay. But the reality is, when you have those moments, have it. Don't let anybody take that away from you. But then be ready to say, you know what? But just like I think about the bathroom scene and I get that picture and then I laugh, you know, it's like, yeah, bless my girl's heart.
What about the time she stole my truck? Remember that?
That's the time that she was driving, so she was looking for, she went down by Burger King. You're not gonna bash my mom. Don't you ain't bashing me. All right, got to go then.
Putting her business on the street.
Huh?
Putting her business on the street.
Right. Bless her heart.
She said thing about something funny.
The word stole.
It was funny. It wasn't funny when the police came, but it was funny. Now it's funny.
All right.
All right, ladies.
I'm hanging up. She's talking about my mom. I can't let her do it.
Your sister.
Thank you so much for sharing this time.
Love you guys. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.